Well, I want to welcome you to Building a Diverse SaaS Sales Team. I'm Cody Horton with Diverse Recruiting Experts. I've been helping clients over probably about the last couple of decades with diversity recruiting and sourcing. Today, what I'm going to talk about is why diversity in a SaaS space is even important. What are the benefits and how do you define your talent strategies and where can you find the SaaS talent? And then ways to really enhance your brand and your messages when you outreach to those candidates. And then I'll also share some tips that really help you have a great candidate experience. One of the quotes that I really like is from Angela Davis. She said, "I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept." And that is so true today. We see so many people making a difference by tackling some of the big problems that are out there. So I'm not going to share a bunch of slides with you. I just want to talk through some of these things. This recording is going to be available. I will bring up and share my screen to show you some examples of ways that you can actually kind of expand your searches and get to more organizations and also to get to more diverse talent. So one of the reasons that diversity is so important, and this won't be a conversation on the business case for diversity, but some of the things that you want to look at when you're looking at building out that SaaS sales team is being able to increase your revenue. Having those diverse teams allows you to be more productive. There's research out there that shows that having a broader reach with a more diverse set of team members on your sales team also allows you to reach a more diverse decision maker. And we know that people engage with people they know, like, and trust. And so by diversifying your sales team, it gives you the opportunity to really make some connections with a broader, diverse set of decision makers. And then it always adds to your culture and it improves the inclusion, which also improves your ability for belonging in the organization. One of the most important things that you can do is really define what you want. When you're going out to find diverse talent, make sure you define what you're looking for, right? What's the purpose? Are you just doing it because, hey, it's the right thing to do? That might be a reason. But I'll say to be intentional when you start, and start with the end in mind. So if you know where you're trying to go, you'll know, what does the role look like? What are we looking for the criteria that we've got for this position? This is a feeling, thinking, and caring business. And in order to be successful, we have to put our heads in the game and we have to use our hearts. And then we have to build relationships with communities that we don't have connections with today, but you can find those communities and you can start to build those relationships. Now, you can't just show up at the national event for an organization. You have to build I call it a multi-touch approach. You need to engage them in a local way. You need to engage them at the regional level, engage them nationally or internationally in some ways for some companies. The other thing that you can do is, are you re-engaging more candidates who might have gotten close, but they didn't get the job offer? And one of the things that I'm going to talk about that's counterintuitive for recruiters, and I say this all the time, is you have to slow down so that you can speed up. Because as recruiters, we're definitely creatures of habit, and we quickly go to that place where we find the talent that we've always found. And that doesn't help us when we're trying to build this diverse workforce. So one of the things that I'm going to recommend is really think about your company brand, right? What is the brand that your company is presenting? Are you known for inclusion? Because candidates are going to go out, they're going to look at your website, they're going to look at the leadership team, they're going to go to LinkedIn, they're going to look at other things to see what your brand looks like. They're going to look at what do you do in the communities that they're from, and what are you doing to champion inclusion and diversity in your company? And so one of the things that you want to do is just take a hard look at your organization and see, what are we doing that we could do better? if your company's got an amazing brand already, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but if it's got an amazing brand already, then get your employee base to leverage that brand and do something different to go out and research social topics and issues that are out there where people are possibly being marginalized. That's going to lead you to the communities who are in those diverse demographics that you're trying to find and underrepresented. Help your candidates know what to expect from your interviews. It's not giving the answers to the test. It's just allowing you to better prepare a candidate to do well in your interview, especially if it didn't come from the traditional sales background that a lot of other candidates come from. You want to help those candidates know what's important. And one of the best practices is to include diverse interviewers on your interview loops. If you've got a diverse workforce or anyone in the company, include those diverse interviewers on your interview loops and make sure that the interviewers that you have are good interviewers and they're not just mediocre, asking the same bad questions that they might have asked years ago. So I'm going to talk a little bit about outreach. Sometimes we go into outreach and we just send the same email. You want to plan your outreach. One of the things that you want to do is, one, know who you're reaching out to. Are you able to actually personalize that message? What are you offering? Because they want to know, why is this person reaching out to me? So what are you offering that's of value to them? Because the candidates are thinking, well, what's in it for me? And you want to also give those candidates a call to action. And I have an example of some email outreaches that you could use that start to make a difference. And I'm happy to send those and share those, and we'll make that available for people who are doing that work. The other thing that you want to be able to do is know what your engagement rules are. Because if you have multiple recruiters reaching out to the same candidates, you want to know, hey, who's going to take the lead and who's going to be the follow-up, or who's going to just take a step and kind of monitor what's happening. The other thing you want to be able to do is just be able to select the channels, be intentional about the channels for communication that you have when you're reaching out to these candidates. Make it personal, be intentional, and engage those diverse communities that you might not have otherwise been engaged with, and make sure that you're sharing valuable, useful content. Now, candidates are inundated with communication now, and so you want to be able to do 5 to 7 different touches with that candidate, because sometimes they may not respond to you right away, and you want to be able to make sure that those candidates get the message and they don't feel like you're spamming them. So if you try multiple channels, reaching out to them, and sometimes you may have a hiring manager reach out to a candidate to get them to engage you, because every other company, all your competitors, are reaching out to those same candidates all the time, and they're getting communication fatigue, whether it's email, in-mail, something on their other social media account, Twitter, all those different places that you can reach out to candidates. They're getting fatigued because of that. One of the things that I asked the question is, are your sourcing channels serving you, or are they holding you back? As recruiters, we always go to the same places. We look for the same skills, we look for the same titles, and we look for the same things all the time. So we don't broaden what we're looking for. And I'm encouraging you to look at different skills. And I did a webinar on how to look at broader skills and broader information that's in the candidate's profile, or maybe it's in a job description. You want to be able to connect with different communities that may not be the actual skill set you're looking for, but if you get into the communities and start to build a reputation and start to build relationships with organizations, communities, association, affinity groups, it's going to give you the ability to actually reach the candidates, because people refer people to others that they trust. One of the things, and I'm going to show some examples of this, is X-ray something every day. Use the site operator in Google search. I think it works in Yahoo as well, but use that site operator to specifically look at websites that have information that's been indexed by Google that you'll be able to use in your search and build on those results that you've got. Are you going to the places where those diverse candidates live. I always say, fish in the pools where the talent is, because nothing changes if nothing changes. And that was a statement most closely aligned with a statement by Courtney Stevens. And so that nothing changes if nothing changes, that's a huge thing. So if you find that you're doing the same thing every day, just do one thing differently and try to make a difference. So I'm going to look and see if there are any questions. I'm going to encourage you to, if you got any questions, put them in the chat box and I'll be able to respond to those. And Jesus will help me keep track of the questions. So one of the things that I wanted to be able to talk to you about is really diversifying your sourcing and how you go about diversifying your sourcing. One of the things that you can do is hold diversity sourcing sessions. Get together with other recruiters and your team members, and some of them are working virtually, so it makes this a little bit easier. Sometimes you're in the same location and you can do it from the whiteboard. Include your hiring managers, get everyone in the same place, either online or in the room, so that hiring managers can see the candidates' profiles and they can identify things that might be transferable skills that recruiters didn't necessarily know would be something that would be, that's something that the hiring manager would want. And then build a list. Don't do the outreach yet, but build that list of people that you're going to eventually do the outreach with. And do these regularly. This is not a one and done thing. One of the challenges with diversity recruiting is people do something once, they say, hey, that didn't work, and then they don't do it again. But bring your laptops, have people be prepared and actually do hands-on work. Take advantage of the manager's personal networks or your coworkers' personal networks, or look at the personal networks or people who are in any affinity groups that you might have in the company. Those are all big things that make a difference when you're trying to do this diversity sourcing. And then once you have that outreach list built, do the outreach and be intentional about how you build the outreach and the communication plans. So I'm just going to give you, I know I've given you a lot of words, but I'm going to bring a browser up, and I want to put just a couple of things that you might try that an experienced sourcer a lot of times would not do this. And so let's get this browser up. If I can get Chrome to work. So I need to share my screen. So hopefully I'm sharing the right screen for you. And so let's just take, let's look at how do you find organizations, right? So everyone asks me a lot of times, where do I find the organizations where people exist? There's certainly a list of organizations, and I have a long list, and most companies have a list of organizations. But what about the places that you don't know about? So let's just do a quick search. I'm going to put in, I just put in a general search term. This is I use SaaS, I use sales, I use women in technology, and I use the terms professional or organization or alumni. And I used conferences, committees, association, and councils, and then I just don't want ads. May give me ads anyway. And so when I bring this up, I've got 577,000 results, and this 577,000 are things that Google has indexed on the internet. And if I just go and look, there are things here. Remember I said, build on your search results. So this may not take me to the candidate that's ultimately going to get hired, but when I look at this and I go to any of these links, this takes me to places that I may find that talent. So if I just click on one of these links, and all of them aren't going to be great, but if I click on one of these links, this particular link is taking me to women in tech sales. And so this is an organization. It may not be a big organization, but I can then use additional sourcing techniques, and I can go and I can look for people, right? I can look for the people. I can find the people who are in the organization, and that's going to help me. let's do another one. And so that's organization. So let's try to find another organization. If I can keep this from delaying, I'm going to do a similar search, and this isn't even a targeted search for people. So I'm going to put in place another search string, right? And all I've done is put Latino or Latina or Latinx or Hispanic, and I use sales or technology, and I'm using the term account manager or account executive. And then this goes, and I use the same concept of including keywords that are professionals, because I'm looking for organizations, I'm looking for associations, I'm looking for alumni, conferences, committees, anything like that. I'm taking a step back just to find those organizations. And when I do this search, it's giving me a number of places, and you can see this is giving me a number of places. It might be articles that are there. You're going to certainly be better at this because you're going to target a little bit more, but this is giving me organizations that have some of the sales folks in here. One of the terms, so if I just edited this and I put the word SaaS in front of it, and I just re-entered it, this gives me it gives me different information. I've got 477 results that have been indexed. And if I look here, this is giving me more information. So you want to play with it, right? You don't necessarily have to do this the way a super sourcer would do it and narrow it down, because that's a tendency, right? We want to narrow down quickly to what we're looking for. But I encourage you to go broadly and find some of the other places. And you may find you're finding people who are hiring. That might lead you to other companies that are hiring the same people that you're hiring. So if you look at some of these, you'll see there's information here that you can look for. And you could certainly change this search string and use the not command to take out jobs, right? You could pull jobs out of this so that it doesn't show you jobs. It just shows you other things that are going to be beneficial. And then I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to use a search, and I'm going to do a search using the natural language. So I'm going to be able to, I put in the search, and I'm putting SaaS, sales, she leads, and women in sales. And so I just want to see what that gives me. And when I look at this, it gives me, it's getting me women. I'm going to be able to find information, and I'm going to be able to build on the information that I find, and I'm going to be able to find more people, more organizations that have that SaaS talent that I'm looking for. And then one other thing, I'm going to give you a much more specific search, which is what a sourcer would do. So when I put in here, I'm going to do one more search. And I'm using the site command because I told you to X-ray something every day. And so to X-ray the site, I'm using the site command, and I'm pointing it at LinkedIn, and I'm putting in the keyword SDR. I could have put in anything here. I'm using a word, and then I'm using these dates, 2014, 2015, 2016, because I want someone who got this award a few years ago. And so when I look, I'm going to find people who they've got the word award in their profile. I'm specifically pointing this at LinkedIn, so I'm targeting profiles. But if I go through here and I look, I'm seeing lots of different people here. You got SDR leaders, you've got lots of different people here. You've got, let's just look at one of these profiles. And I know this is taking a little bit of time, but this is a little bit of the practice that you want to get into so that you are able to build out a broader pool of candidates, and then you can build your more specific searches based on the information that you had. And this is a little bit slow, but you can see I've got an SDR manager, and this SDR manager, this is in the UK, but I could have targeted this so that I could have written a search string so that this person is going to be a US based person. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and look. I see some questions in the chat window. What interview training programs do you recommend? It's a great question. Joseph has a question, says, what interview training programs do you recommend? I recommend for interviewing that you get something that has an inclusive interviewer workshop. We deliver an inclusive interviewer workshop. A lot of companies have those inclusive interviewer workshop. If you don't specifically have a workshop like that or interview training like that, look at unconscious bias, because the whole purpose is to get you, one, to be a better interviewer. The second thing is to make sure that you're addressing and mitigating any unconscious bias that shows up, because sometimes we immediately like a person because they're like us. And so that's one of the things that comes up. And and I have a video on inclusive bias and interviewer bias. And so I can definitely share the links to that. We got another question from Mike. It says, how do SaaS companies build their sales team? For any particular recruiter to keep in mind when finding the right talent? One of the things you want to keep in mind is you want to have people who are adding to the culture of that team. If you hire a sales team that's always the same because they were the captain of the football team or the head of something and they were standout and they're an extrovert, that might not necessarily be the best person for the team. It may make more sense to bring on other people on the team who are going to be able to balance out that team and have broader appeal to the clients. And Anita has a question, says, how can I get passive candidates to respond when reaching out to them on LinkedIn? Oh, it's a great question. One of the things that you want to be able to do is get those candidates. You want to personalize that messaging. You want to reach out to them, not in a salesy way, but you want to reach out to them, personalize the message, use something in that message about them that stands out, and then you want to send them the message. And just know you're going to have to follow up with them a couple of different times, in some cases. But if you find common ground, that's what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to reach out to them with that common ground and be able to get them to engage with you. And then you don't want to waste their time, right? You want to find out, are they open to opportunity? If they're not, people are always open to networking. And if you're providing something of value to them, that's going to make a big difference just in the conversation and in the communication with them. Let me see if there are any other questions. I don't see any other questions just yet. So let me talk a little bit about where you go, because a lot of times we go to the same places, and I mentioned that we're creatures of habit, right? One of the things that you want to do is you want to look for umbrella organizations. And what I mean by that is you're looking for organizations that have broad membership, broad demographic. They have women, they have people of color, they have underrepresented people, they have LGBTQ community, they have people with disabilities in their organization. And some of the organizations that stand out for that are people with disabilities. There are so many organizations out there for people with disabilities who can do the sales job, and they're all the demographics are in that group. And sometimes we forget to source on those terms. The other thing is veterans and military spouses. That's a group of people that you're going to find every demographic that you can possibly think of in that group. So being able to source on that. Alumni associations certainly have a broad membership base, and specifically the LGBTQ community has every demographic you could imagine, every gender, every race, every social, economic position, people with disabilities, how do they present themselves, multiple pronouns. You can find in that community anyone you're looking for. And so sometimes we don't get specific about looking in those umbrella communities, those umbrella organizations, but that's another place. So the goal here is not to give you deep Boolean search strings on how to do that, but it's to change the mindset on how you approach sourcing and finding that talent, and then be able to recognize the bias that's in your search process, because we are creatures of habit and we go to the same channels, the same places, the same titles, the same skill sets all the time. So just pause, take a step back, slow down to go faster. And I know it's hard because you've got a lot of pressure as the recruiter to do more search, to do more sources, to do more hiring, but you don't have that pressure to slow down, and you have to put that pressure on yourself to slow down, take a step back. And I have a long list of resources that are available, and I can spend more time on how you use each one of those resources. But if you can make this adjustment to your mindset and how you approach it and just slow down to speed up, that's going to make all the difference in the world. Case in point, a lot of times recruiters are sourcing and we see a profile that came up in our search that doesn't have the information filled out, and we skip that profile. So rather than skipping the profile, take a little time, reach out to that candidate, dig into the profile, understand a little bit more. You might find the person that you are looking for is the person who built that profile, and they're a software developer or they're a salesperson who didn't decide to build out their profile. You want to be able to not ignore those profiles, but to spend time engaging with those people and broadening. At a minimum, if they respond to you, you might get a lead out of it who would meet the needs. And so there are lots of places you can go to find sales talent, SaaS sales talent. You can expand those channels, Facebook, looking at Instagram, looking at Airbnb, looking at meetups, looking at the Slack groups. There are lots of different places, looking at Twitter, looking at YouTube. Salespeople are out extroverts in a lot of cases, or even if they're not an extrovert, somebody might have done a YouTube video on a specific topic as it relates to sales and how to get better at sales. So look at those places, get better at just kind of expanding where you look. So one of the things that I want to talk about, and I want to leave you with this, I know we're at time, and then I want to be able to answer a few more questions if there are any. You want to make sure your candidates have an amazing experience. Whether they get the job or not, you want to make sure they have a great experience, because they're either going to be a future customer of yours or they're going to be a never customer of yours based on their experience in your recruiting process. So making sure that your interviewers are good at building relationships, they're good at being respectful, and they're good at just spending time with those candidates so that they are at a minimum neutral. You ideally want them to be a promoter and positive, but you definitely don't want them to be a detractor and negative, because that's where they're going to go, not only to Glassdoor, but they're going to go to other social media channels and tweet about it and post about it and comment about it and possibly write articles about it. So those are the things that can hurt you. So to future-proof that candidate experience, here are the things that I say do. This is the hard part of head and heart. Heart, the H is humble, be humble. You want everyone on your interview team to be humble. You want them to be empathetic, authentic, respectful, and truthful, and just be transparent, and always say thank you to the candidate for spending time with you. So I'm going to take a second. I'm going to look to see if I see any other questions, and if not, we'll wrap. We'll make it a wrap. But I heard we should look around in Instagram for salespeople. Also, check the profiles. Yeah. Okay. So this question from Mike is, you can definitely look at Instagram. People are all over Instagram. There's so much information on Instagram, but I say there's information on a lot of those channels. So look at those channels, be intentional. That's the key, is to be intentional about looking at something different and doing something different every day. Now, there's certainly tools like Hire Easy, Intello, Seek Out. Those tools, those AI tools, are all tools that are going to help you. But this is for that individual recruiter or sourcer who is trying to make an impact with building out that sales team, that SaaS sales team. And that just requires you to do something different. I do a session on diversity sourcing data and how you would use the data to make an informed decision. And I'll include a list of those in a resource guide that we'll give you for everybody who attended this session. And so let me see if there are any other questions. Nope. I don't see any questions. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. I know this is a quick 30-minute conversation, but I'd love to re-engage you. So send me a note, send me an email, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Take care. Have a good one.